Okay. Good evening, class. Do you have a pen already?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, we're going to be talking about the importance of quiet time. QT is quiet time. And basically, we're going to use this verse as a foundation for why it is important to have a quiet time. Mark chapter 1, verse 35. First, to give you a bit of back information about the book of Mark. It's written by a man named Mark. And the difference between like Matthew talks about his audience is a Jewish audience. He's giving them the background of Jesus from way back in the Old Testament, Abraham, all the way through to Jesus. But in Mark, he is talking about the actions of Christ. And so this is in the first chapter, and if you look a couple verses before this, Mark is talking about Jesus' day before he rises and goes off to pray. He had been doing all sorts of miracles and visiting with a whole bunch of people. It was like a very ministry-packed day.
I don't have
Okay.
I thought I did.
That's
I guess
okay.
I took it out my purse.
I have one right here.
I always do it.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, teacher.
No worries. So he had this ministry-packed day, and I mean, it's the way it sounds. It feels like it was just a long, long day filled of working with people and everything. And then this is the verse that comes after this ministry-packed day. It's Mark 1:35. And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went to a desolate place, and there he prayed. If you were to look at the verses after that, what does he go back into? And immediately he went to do this, and then immediately he went to do that. Mark, in all of the book of Mark, is all talking about what God is about to do. But in this verse, we see how he has the power to be able to do that. So this is going to be the foundation of all the little bullet points that are going to be talking about why it's important for us to have a quiet time. Okay? So if we look at the first bullet, the priority of quiet time. Mark this down. The priority is indicated in very early in the morning, right here. This part of the verse tells us the priority of quiet time. It wasn't like he slept in because he had a long day of ministry the day before. The next morning he gets up very early in the morning. And I like the way John 15:5 kind of, that verse right there talks about, I am the vine and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. I'm looking at Jesus. This is Jesus, who is God, man, all in one, who is demonstrating for us his need to spend time with God the Father. And he's Jesus. So if Jesus needs to go very early in the morning, he makes it a priority to go very early in the morning. If he makes it that priority, how much more do we need to make it that priority? Because if you look at that part 2, where it's highlighted or italicized for apart from me, you can do nothing, I like to ask the question, do I believe that? Do I believe that apart from God, I can do nothing? Because I believe that's what Jesus was thinking. Apart from God, I can't really do this ministry. And so he made it a priority to get up very early in the morning to go spend some time with God. And got a couple examples of that. You all know Jacob. And Jacob's wife got married in the Philippines, but his wife is in the Philippines and he's here now. And they've got a period of time that they're going to be apart until she can join up with him, because that's just the process that it's taking for her to be able to come to the States. Well, they make it a priority every night, even though he might be tired after a long day of work. It's a certain point in the night, like in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock, whatever time it is. They have an appointment every night because their relationship is long distance, and she lives in the Philippines and he's here. And so they make it a priority to meet together, see each other on Skype every night, because they love each other and they want to make sure that they stay connected in that way.
Yeah.
So that's like an example here. Another thing too is like my car. If I want to, I love my car. It's 12 years old, but I don't want to buy a new car. I don't want to have to a new payment or anything like that. So I need to make it a priority that I keep it up, maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Give it gas. Don't let it run out of gas. Make sure the oil's changed on time, which is not changed right now, but that's okay. I'll get it done soon. But making sure that the oil is changed, because that car is important to me being able to get around and move around town.
Yeah.
That's another priority. Or let me think of another example. The health of this church. If we just met once every 6 months, how healthy a church do you think we would be?
Not healthy at all.
And I think our pastors do a good job of making it a priority of giving us times for us as a congregation to come together and meet and fellowship with each other, because, you know, it's important for believers to have that encouragement, being with the believers, with fellow believers. And so we prioritize what's important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Jesus is important to us, and his word says, apart from me, we can do nothing, then if we believe that, then this relationship with Jesus has got to be up there on that list, number one on the list, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that bold statement at the end of it says, make an appointment with God each day and keep it. Think about if you had to get your hair appointment. It's time for a haircut, and you know how it looks when it looks good. But right now, it's not looking so good. You're going to make sure you get to that appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a doctor's appointment, they charge you money if you don't show up. You're going to make sure that you get to that appointment, however you're going to get to it. So with God, make an appointment with God each day and keep it. The next thing we're going to look at is the place for quiet time. So this is where Jesus, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went to a desolate place. Let's do it like that. So that is the place. So the definition for desolate is, definition for desolate is uninhabited, remote, uncluttered. In our case, for a quiet time, it's conducive to spending time with God, spending time alone with God. And the verses that we have there are just these. Actually, Matthew 6:6 is just I think this is God Jesus is telling the people. But when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, etc., etc. So pull away from the crowds, pull away from the family, pull away from people, busyness. Go to a desolate place. Luke 5:16. That's the one where it's another example of Jesus. But he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. He just really set the example. He needed to spend time with God just as much as we need to spend time. And he set that example for us. David, in the morning when he gets up, he usually gets up before I do. And he goes, he showers, he gets his coffee ready. He opens up the blinds in the window. And he goes and sits down right next to the window. And he has his quiet time. After he gets out of the shower, that's when I go get in the shower. And then I go into our little extra room, sit down in a corner, open up the window, close the door, and I just shut off everything else so that I can have that quiet, desolate place where I have time to pray or spend time with Jesus. So think about it for yourself. Where is the best place for you to spend quiet time? Just think to yourself and note for yourself. Like if I had a chance to get away in the morning, where would I go? Or whatever time it is. What would that be for me? For me also, let me tell you this real quick. So I started off doing my quiet time once I got married, was just like laying in bed when I first woke up. Found that to be a no-no. Like I have to get up and shower and then go find my quiet place. If I stay in the bed, I take a risk of mind wandering, going back to sleep, not getting the time in at all, you know? And so, and I like my sleep. So if I stay in my bed to do my quiet time, chances are it's not going to get done.
You don't fall back asleep.
Yes, I probably will. So that is the place for quiet time. The period for quiet time. This is the period that Jesus took. While it was still dark. While it was still dark. So answer this question to yourself. When are you most likely to have undistracted time with the Lord? Or I like it what David says. He says he likes early in the morning because he doesn't have to rush. There's no time to rush. He can just relax and enjoy the time and not feel like I gotta get here. I gotta move here or there or whatever. When are you your best? When are you your best? At what time of the day are you your best? Now, even though you might be a morning person or evening person or a middle of the day person, that might not be the best time for you to do it because you're at work or you got something that you do, or you work early in the morning, but you're a morning person, so you're like going from bed straight out to the job. So one of the girls at church, Melissa, she's a teacher, she says the best time for her to have quiet time is during her lunch break. So she has this hour in the middle of her day, and she steals away to, I don't know, it must be the quiet place in the lunchroom, the teacher's lounge or something like that. But she uses that as her time for quiet time, and that's great. For David, it's first thing in the morning. For me, it has to be first thing in the morning. For me, my best time, I would probably say is actually middle of the day. But for me, once my day gets going, it's hard for me to stop whatever I'm doing and pull away and get started with a quiet time. I need to do it first thing in the morning, even though I might not be the best. So that's why I have to shower too, to kind of wake me up or whatever. But shower and get it done then, because once my day gets going, there's no way I can pull back and get into it. Yeah. In the evening, there's no way for me to do it. After I get home from work, mind is gone. Can't do anything but sit, make breakfast or make dinner, and turn on the TV or whatever, talk to David or something like that. That's not a good time for me either. So it has to be for me morning, but I have to shower first because I'm not a morning person. So that is something for you to think about. What is the best time? When are you your best? And start small. That's the next two little bullets or lines. Start small and build some consistency. So if it's just 5 minutes that you start small with, I am going to read a psalm, and that's 5 minutes, and that's what I'm going to start off with for my quiet time. But sometimes, too, the thing is that you have to push through until duty becomes like, I underline that, push through, because sometimes it's the same as like dieting. You know, you stop after so long, or or somebody, you go to an event where they're eating cake or they're something smelling really good and it's hard for you. It is really that moment when you need to push through what you want until it becomes your delight to do what you're doing. So once you push through pushing back on the food, and then it becomes a delight because you're losing the weight and you have more energy and all that stuff, that's the pushing through until it becomes a delight. That's the same thing as it is with a quiet time. Sometimes we absolutely, we don't know how to have a quiet time, or we get frustrated because my mind wanders, or I can attest to having that problem. It's like, Lord, I can't even focus on this prayer because I'm thinking about the rest of my day. But it does take consistency and just start small. Don't worry about how much. And that's the same thing too with exercise. If we go too big, too fast with exercise, we get our body aches and everything. We're like, forget it. I'm not going back there. But that's, again, one of those things. Push through, start small, build up, be consistent. So we got through the priority of quiet time, the place, a desolate place, the period, what was it? While it was still dark. Now we're looking at the plan and pieces of quiet time. And we see this here, and there he prayed. Plan and pieces of your quiet time. So the pieces are the things that you bring to your quiet time. The pieces that you bring depend on the plan. Okay? So if you plan out what you're going to be doing during your quiet time, then that determines what pieces you're going to be. For example, you're journaling. You're going to bring your journal and your pen. If you're going to sing, you're going to bring your iPod or your tape box or whatever, tape, CD player, or a hymnal or some kind of music book or something like that, and you're going to bring that to the quiet time. Your Bible, your notebook and pen, I already said that for journaling, an awake mind. You're going to bring these things to it, but the things that you're not going to bring are those things that distract you. So for me, this is what I do. In the morning, I have my cell phone plugged out of the room because I'll go to bed texting or checking Pinterest or Facebook or whatever, but I have to get it out of the room because the moment that if it's in my bed and I wake up, I'll flip on that phone right away and start, my day is going. And like I said before, once my day is going, I can't stop, pull back. I don't know how to stop and pull back and get to a desolate place and, so I have to plan to put that cell phone, which is a distraction for me, outside of the room. So once I shower, get dressed, I can go into my quiet place and have my quiet time. Or a computer. I know when I was working at camp, I would sometimes come to work and do my quiet time, but with my computer right in front of me, it seemed like it would just call me to get started with work, and usually that would just distract me very quickly from what I had set out to do. I like this verse here, Psalm 119:18. It says, "Open my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of your law." And I like to pause before my prayer, and I learned this also from David too, is that I don't know if you all have ever noticed on Sunday mornings when like after he finishes his message, and he'll say, "Let's pray." And it'll be like this long pause before he actually starts to pray. Now, at first I'd be like waiting, and then I'd put an eye open, and I'd be like, "What is going on?" And then he'll start praying. I'm like, okay. We'll kind of find out that he's trying to, zero in on God, because that's who he's about to talk to. He's about to come before the Father, and a lot of times we just go right into it to pray, and our minds are all over the place. And I believe that's what he's doing. I don't know if we've ever actually talked about it, but I believe that he's trying to zero in on who he's talking to, which is the God, the sovereign God of heaven, just to prepare his mind for whatever he's about to pray about. And so a model of prayer that we have there is acts, adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. Adoration is responding to the greatness of God. That's like praising his character, his attributes. He's sovereign, he's holy, he's righteous, he's forgiving, he's loving, he's good, he's merciful, he's kind, he's faithful. That's adoration of who God is. He's sovereign. Confession, that is responding to the holiness of God. God is holy, and we are not. Thinking about Isaiah 6 when he said he sees the Lord and he's seated on the throne, and the robe of his the train of his robe fills the temple, and he's just seeing the holiness of God. And it's the next part he says, "Oh, but I am an unclean thing." He talks about his tongue being unclean, and the people he's with, they're unclean, and that was in response to seeing God's holiness. And that's what becomes. That should be our response. We see God's holiness, that should be like, man, oh, I'm not holy. Lord, this is what I am. I'm confessing, da-da-da-da. Thanksgiving, responding to the goodness of God. All he's done, I have to say thank you. You know, for all he's done for me, man, thank you, Lord. So because I know that God is so generous, let me ask, Lord, will you help me with this? Will you take care of my father? Will you take care of my marriage, my children, my whatever my needs are? Some other things to think about, like the plan and the pieces. Like I told you all earlier, my mind wanders sometimes when I pray. And so this might as well be David's talk, because another thing that he's taught me is just praying out loud. Instead of to think about it'll start leading down these rabbit trails to everything else that's going on. But something about praying out loud, you're thinking it, speaking it, and you're hearing it. There's three things that are going on. You're thinking, speaking, and hearing. Whereas when you're just thinking it, that's all. A greater level of concentration on who you're talking to when you speak out loud when you're praying. Mm-hmm. Praying through a list, writing out your prayers. So that journal that you bring in, instead of just, journaling or diarying, using it as a diary, writing out those prayers is a good plan to have. To meet you even in those times when your mind is wandering. And know it's always okay to just come back. Be like, Lord, man, my mind is wandering. Please meet me right here. Maybe I'm supposed to pray for this situation that my mind has wandered to. But always allow that to bring you back to who you're talking to. And the purpose of quiet time is the last point. Else related to quiet time is to get to know God. I like that statement. It says, if we are going to be making disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ, then we must have a healthy, growing relationship with the Lord. In order to make him known, we have to know him. And I have only one temptation in ministry. It is the temptation to do things for God in ministry without first spending time with God each morning. And I have been guilty of doing this, where I have gone into a day of camp. God helped me, but I don't know how I did it without meeting with him very early in the morning, because those were some long days and there were so many decisions that needed to be made related to kids, related to the camp, whatever. And I was doing a lot of that in my own strength. And so this particular me that I do need to every morning take that time. For me, it's in the morning. Take that time to begin my day, because ministry, we are all ministers of the word. And I don't want to be without knowing God and when it comes to the ministry. And I do believe that John 15:5, where it's apart from me, you can do nothing. I believe apart from God, we can do nothing. If I believe that, then I'm going to prioritize quiet time. I'm going to find a desolate place for quiet time. I'm going to have a period very early in the morning for me because I know the purpose of it. So my final encouragement to you is make an appointment with God each morning and keep it. And invite other people into knowing what your quiet time is looking like for accountability. And the second part is to practice today. That's that last verse there. Psalm 105 verse 4 says, seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his presence continually. Make an appointment, practice the presence of God throughout the day. That verse kind of sums it all up. We need to seek the Lord in his presence. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his presence continually.
Wait, oh, it did stop.